but get together, be mentored, follow the process, and your chances of success are that much greater.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. With me, excited to have Greg Mohr. Greg, how are you doing today?
Excellent, Todd. Thank you for having me today, sir.
Yeah, well, appreciate you being on the show. And Greg is the franchise maven. He's with Franchise Maven. Greg helps entrepreneurs, investors, corporate refugees find franchises, find thriving franchise fit or flip their current business into one. So specializes in extensive research, analyzing hundreds of franchises to make sure his clients find the perfect fit. So we're going to dive into that, and you've got an extensive background. So I want you to give our listeners a bit more about your background, and then we'll dive in.
Thank you for that, Todd. Well, my franchising journey actually started back in the high school days, where most of us back in the late 70s when I went to high school, we got jobs in fast food places. Mine just happened to be Taco Bell. I think I knew the owners at the time, or they were just hiring, or one of the two. But I moved up in the Taco Bell world and started managing restaurants for a lady named Kathy. And as it turns out, she was a master franchisor for Taco Bell. And she owned about 50 Taco Bells throughout the Sacramento, California and Woodland, California area where I lived. So I went around to her different restaurants throughout the Sacramento, California area and helped her build up her teams and her business on there. Great introduction to the franchising. Went on to manage another restaurant for 15 years. Became a microelectronic circuit engineer, went to college, got a degree in electrical engineering and physics, did that for about 15 years. Got my master's degree in business. While I was doing that, a friend of mine and myself, we got dry cleaners, privately we're doing on the side, storage units that we did on the side, and then I had rental properties as well, doing that on the side while I was being an engineer. Ed, poor Ed, lots of people do that. Ruined my corporate career for me in a good way, which I'm sure he's done on that one. And I realized I was in the wrong with his little segments there. I was definitely in the wrong segment, but getting there with my side businesses. So we both got out of the corporate world. A gentleman's name that I worked with was Robbie. He got out. I got out of the corporate world. I turned all my shares over to him, let him do the business, sold everything to him, and said, I got to do my own thing. I don't have the latest, greatest idea. That franchising thing was really cool back then in my Taco Bell days. I really enjoyed that. You just walk into any restaurants, exactly the same processes and procedures, no matter what you do. So I said, I got to do that. So I went out there, started looking for franchises, found myself a franchise consultant after I had about 20 different franchise development people calling me up all over the place. They had no idea what I was doing. Franchise consultant really helped me, got me into a great franchise. I did that for a couple of years, but then I realized I like what that franchise consultant was doing. So I went back to him and said, teach me what you do. And that was, about 10, 12 years ago, and haven't looked back since.
That's great. That's great. What's you got a successful franchise like Taco Bell, obviously McDonald's, right? And there's a lot of them out there that we could name. You got a lot of successful franchises, and then you got the other ones that aren't successful. What's the biggest? Are there like a couple key differences that you see in the ones that you're like, that's the right one and that's not?
What the kind of services that they offer and how they develop their franchisees and their culture, Todd, is something to look into on that. You're correct. There's about 5,000 franchises out there in the U.S., and on average, they have about 20 franchisees on there. So the ones that really set them apart for services, because your main goal as a franchisor, switching from your privately owned business then over into your franchise business, is you've got to step into a different role, and you've got to be that mentor, and you've got to develop those franchisees. So you want somebody that really is focused on developing the franchisees and helping them grow. Their main goal in life is to be that. So it's got to have a great culture. They've got to have a team behind them that can help them grow, help the franchisees grow, so they have all sorts of members, marketing, advertising, getting clients, getting personnel, just getting your name out there, and just knowing how to do those things, and having a great support system is very important on that. So those are the ones that really focus on their franchisees and really are looking to do do whatever it takes to get them built up and to get them going. You find those are very successful, and they usually have something that differentiates them within their framework of what they do. We had a lot of back before COVID, we had a lot of the yogurt shops, and the yogurt shops all did the same thing. It was just simple yogurt. Yogurt, build it, they will come. Hope for the best. And they thought yogurt was the greatest thing back then, and then most of them failed because they're all the same. There's nothing that differentiated them. So you're looking for something that really differentiates your franchise from the others.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like if everybody's got the same yogurt shop, they all look and feel the same. It's like you don't feel any brand. People go to Taco Bell because they know what Taco Bell is going to give them, and they can go to a Taco Bell in Minnesota, and they can go to a Taco Bell in Missouri, and they can go to a Taco Bell in California, and they're going to get the same thing. They can go to Taco Bell, in Europe, and they're going to get, well, maybe not exactly the same thing, but pretty dang close, right?
Pretty close, yeah.
Yeah. So they know what they're getting, they know the experience, and if they're okay with that experience, they're going to keep on going there, right? Where if you've got a yogurt shop and it's the same thing, doesn't matter if I go to Jim's yogurt or Susie's yogurt, it's all the same. Like, then I have no allegiance. Like, I could care less, right? That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Why would, I think you maybe already answered this, but why would somebody pay the money? Because it's expensive in a lot of cases. I've looked a little bit into what it would cost for me to buy into some of these franchises that are successful, and some of them are pretty expensive. You got to potentially have a building, you've got the franchise fees, you've got other fees, you got to have they also qualify you, right? So why would somebody do that versus just starting on their own, where it could potentially be a lot cheaper to start? They don't have to deal with the franchise. They can do things their own way. What are your keys for, hey, this is the better way to go?
Yeah, I get that. And I get that question a lot from entrepreneurs out there who are looking to go into business and they can't decide, Todd, which way they want to go, buy it themselves and do it themselves or go with the franchise system. The bottom line on that, short answer, and then I'll go into a slightly longer answer, but short answer on that, you want to get to where you want to be 2 to 3 years quicker than if you were to do it yourself on that. So yeah, going to a private business, that's yours. You do whatever you want with it. You don't have any territory restrictions. You can do anything you want, grow anywhere you want, move it in any direction you want. You're doing it by yourself, all by yourself. These franchisors, they did that. That's how they became a franchise. They did it by themselves. They started it by themselves and did it. So when you're looking to go into business and you're looking at a franchise, you're looking for somebody who's already gone through and made all those mistakes, went through all those trials and tribulations, so that when you're stepping into that one, you've got that business in a box right there. And you're never wondering, what do I do next? Because you've got that franchisor there that's going to help you grow that business and build that business. That is their main goal in life. Now, as far as the expense, pretty close. The total expense, whether you get into a private business or a franchise, is going to be somewhat similar on that, because of the fact that most of the expense that's involved in a franchise is actually doing a build out. So you'll need to do a build out, whether it's a private business or whether it's a franchise. The added expense is the things that you have to look at and say, are they worth it? Like you mentioned, Todd, that franchise fee. Generally speaking, whether it's a brick and mortar or service industry franchise, no matter what the total investment is, franchise fees around $50,000, one-time fee, get you all the training you need. It's the royalties that some people kind of balk at a little bit. And the royalties are going to be between 5 and 10% in general for franchises. That's off the top, generally off the top, gross income on that. And that keeps that franchise in business and keeps them growing. That's their reason for being there. And what you do along the way is, if you want to consider franchising as an option, you talk to franchisees who have been around a long time and say, what are you getting for that royalty? Do you feel that it's worth it on that? And then you make your decision about whether or not you want a whole group of people, considering the fact that most franchises have a protected territory. As you go through the process and you're talking to the franchise, you're going to talk to the franchisees as well, and you're going to make friends along the way. So not only do you have that franchisor that's going to help you grow, now you've got a whole team of people, a whole tribe of people. All those people that you talk to are going to be your friends, and they're going to help you grow as well. So again, bottom line, franchise, you're looking to get to where you want to be 2 to 3 years quicker than if you were to go through it and do it yourself.
Yeah, you've got your own built-in mastermind group right
Yes.
there of others that are doing it, that are in the same business, that have dealt with some of the stuff that you're all of a sudden dealing with, or you know, that's huge as far as being able to navigate through some of the trials that are happening. Man, think about during COVID, where there was just like these crazy unknowns that happening all the time, and but if you have this mastermind group of other franchise owners that going through the same thing, man, a lot of good ideas I'm sure were taking place, where people were figuring out and solving problems during a very challenging time to get them through. I don't. I'm sure there's statistics out there, but I look at the franchises that I know of, and they seem like they made it through during that time. And again, I'm sure some of them failed, but the ones that were successful, of course, they continue to make it through. Where a lot of individual business, unfortunately, didn't make it through during that time.
Very true. We had a lot of franchises that they all got together and thought about, okay, fitness franchises, what are we going to do
Oh yeah,
to keep our clientele around? So the franchisor had to think real quickly, and a lot of them, what they did, they just started doing online things. So sometimes, another franchisee may come up with it and spread it around to the other franchisees, or the franchisor comes up with it and says, okay, we just developed a system here. Now we've got this software in place. You guys can go online and get people to do it. And that kept a lot of the business in the fitness industry around through that COVID period.
yeah. So I mean, what I'm hearing with the franchises is some big things, and these are huge points of success in business. Is you've got a culture that's already been established. And certainly you have your own individual culture within your franchise, but or within your business, your building, but you've got a culture that's already there. You've got training that's taking place. You've got a lot of mentorship and training and masterminding, and that's probably the biggest reason for the success. And of course, you've got the built-in systems and the familiarity and the back-end marketing, and that's what you're paying those royalties for, right? Is all those things that you've got. You still got to go out and run the business. You still got, there's still things to do. You can't fail, but or you can fail still. But you've got a lot of the back end already support there.
Very true. Very true. And yeah, one of the key attributes that a potential franchisee or business owner have is they have to be a little bit risk averse on that, because as you said, Todd, there's still a risk. You could still fail. So got to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Out of the out of all the guys and gals that you've dealt with that have started, businesses or changed their business to the franchise model, the successful ones, the ones that take it, really grab and really do well and continue to grow their business, what are maybe a couple of those keys that you see in them that some of the other ones maybe don't have?
Well, the first one, just to get into the business, Todd, again, is the risk tolerance. You got to be a little bit tolerant of risk. Once you're doing that, the other attributes that you need to have, there's two of them. One is you need to be able to follow a process and systems on that. And the second one is you have to be able to be mentored on that. Those are the biggest things on that. You can't go in thinking that, all right, it's a good business, but I've got some of my own ideas on that I think I'll do right away. And I've had a couple of franchisees when they went into the system, they thought they knew something better than the franchise, and that the franchise hasn't tried before. Franchises are pretty open most of the time, and they'll let you do things that are out of the ordinary. It didn't work out for them quite so well, so they went back to the original model. But really be successful is you really wanted to run that business the way that franchise had been running it, because that's why you got into it, because they were proven on that. Get to know their systems, get to know their processes, follow that, get together with the other franchisees on a regular basis. Every year you'll be getting together with the franchisor and the franchisees on a regular basis anyway. Talk about what's going on, what can be changed, what can new things that can be developed. But get together, be mentored, follow the process, and your chances of success are that much greater. And that's what I see the people that are really successful do right away, is they just get in, embrace that culture, they embrace that process and systems that are in place, and they just go for it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you can't follow the rules, the franchise is probably not for you, right? do
Very
run
true.
run
Very
your own
true.
business,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the franchise, like you said, there's a reason it's a successful franchise, and they've got systems and processes in place, and that's what you're supposed to do is follow the rules. Now, I think that's cool that the franchise, you can maybe make some adjustments here or there. They're open to it, but at the same time, um, if you're not willing to follow the rules, if you're not willing to be mentored, quite frankly, if you're not willing to be mentored in any kind of business, I think you're going to have a challenging time. If you're always needing to just do it on your own, and that's just not a recipe for growth, no matter what, whether it's a franchise, whether it's, your real estate investments, whether it's, running your own manufacturing business, whatever it might be. It's just not a recipe for success. Um, Greg, what do you explain the process that you do? Like, what kind of value do you add? Why would I go through you if I'm looking to either, you know, start a new business, or, change my business to a franchise? Why would I go through you versus just, I don't know, just picking one and finding it and doing my own research?
Great question, Todd. So first off, for those who don't know, I'm free on that. So I don't charge for my services. I work with about probably a little over 500 different franchises on that. If you decide to invest in one of the franchises I introduce you to, they pay me a referral fee
Hmm.
for that. Now, I tried
That's
doing
a
it on
good,
my own.
that's a really good deal. So far you started out right.
There you go. Yeah. It's amazing. I didn't know franchise consultants existed when I first started it. So I made the mistake of going online and just started clicking on franchises. So I
Yeah.
had 20 different franchise development people. So what I had to do for myself is figure out one, because they didn't always say is, do I qualify for that as far as my background? Do I qualify for that as far as my finances go? Uh, so those are a couple things that I'll start off with. I'll take a look at where have you been? So what skill sets do you have and how do they match up with the different franchises on there? And then where are you at now as far as what are you comfortable investing in a franchise? Not necessarily what you have to invest, but what are you comfortable investing in a franchise money-wise and then time-wise as well? And then what do you see that franchise doing for you? So in the real estate world, it's fairly simple. If you want to move to another town, you've got a whole list of real estate, generally speaking, that you can just kind of thumb through. There is actually, at this point in time, no central location for all the different franchises. So if you're going to go out there and do it yourself, you've got to go Google a lot of stuff. And not only do you have to contact that franchise, but trying to find which franchises are available in the area, but then you have to, or you have to look and see who has territory available in that area. So that's one
Sure.
of the things that I do on that, because not all of them have territory. You may look and say, oh, there's not a Taco Bell there at this time. Well, there maybe an area developer came in who was going to actually develop that territory. He or she bought, 5 territories. They've developed one. They still have to develop those other 2. They're going to do that next year. You don't know that.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, until you start talking and looking at that franchise. And then you have to investigate what franchises are looking for people like you. So each franchise, as you said before, Todd, they're going to investigate you just as much as you investigate them. So you have to figure out, okay, what kind of skill sets do I need for that franchise? So, that's where I come in, is really streamlining that process for folks. Most folks that come in don't know exactly which business they want to get into. They just know they want to get into a business. Now, if you do know exactly which franchise you want, then by all means, go out there and check it out yourself. If you already know, you can pick up my book and get a copy of that, and that'll walk you through the step-by-step process of how to investigate a franchise. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to streamline that process. And that's what my franchise consultant did for me as well. Made it a lot simpler so I could start looking at franchises within a few days that were available in my area, that I qualified for financially, that I qualified for with my background, and that or ones that I was interested in. So that's what I do with people, is walk through, try to get to know them as much as I can so that I can get a good feel for what types of franchises they'd be interested in, kind of like Match.com and Realtor.com, all rolled into one. And then along the way, I've got CPAs, I've got funding people that fund franchises all the time, very simple process. I've got franchise attorneys to introduce you to. So I've got everything that you need to help you make that informed decision of, is franchising right for me to begin with? And if it is, which franchise is right for me?
Greg, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, you said if you know what franchise you want to get into, you can do it yourself and do the research. That sounds like not a good option. Like, because what I could use you, and you can make sure I'm checking all the right boxes. Even if even if I come to you and I say, I know I want a Taco Bell franchise, you might end up, first of all, you might end up talking me out of a Taco Bell and saying, this is a better, look at these other options. But you're, why wouldn't I use you? Like, I just, you do so much for somebody. It just seems like a no brainer. And I don't have to pay you. The franchise pays you. So even better. And why else would I use you? Well, you've been awarded the franchise consultant of the year twice, right? And so that's pretty cool. And you've got the book and the podcast. And so yeah, whether somebody uses you or another franchise consultant, it just seems like a no brainer to use a franchise consultant.
Yeah, we've got a lot of experience. I mean, if you're looking for franchise consultants and you don't want to just pick me, you want to do a comparison, then look for consultants that have been around 5, 10 years. We've talked with so many different franchises and put so many different people into franchises that we know what you're going to hear when you talk to certain franchises. We know which ones are the better ones, which ones are not so good on that. So we got a good feel for it. And while a lot of people will ask me, how much can I make in a franchise? Federal Trade Commission does not really appreciate me telling them that because I don't collect that information. They're not going to throw me in jail, but I could get into some trouble anyway on that. Can't tell you that. I do have a good feel for what you can make for it, and I can steer you toward. I kind of know what you're going to hear on that,
Yeah.
so you won't be surprised when you go in there and say, I'm looking to make $100,000 a year, and I said, make 5, 10,000 a year. Like, I kind of got a feel for that. So again, while I can't tell you exactly per franchise what you can make, I got a feel for them, and I kind of steer you in the right direction. Not everybody's looking just for money, but quite a few people, and my people are looking for. I just want the ones that make the most money, and as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, steer me towards those. It's like, all right, I'll put you in front of those.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and there's, I think, the biggest misconception that I hear and feel like, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe there's more misconceptions that I think it feels like a lot of people think franchise, I'm going to buy into a franchise, and it's going to be a passive income. I don't have to work. I don't want to, I'm going to retire. I'm going to, buy into a franchise, and I'm going to, get my passive income that way. Is it passive income?
Todd, there's actually 4 franchises that I have where they're going to have a management team run that for you. I would not consider that completely passive income. I don't know anything that's real passive. I mean, you stick it in the stock market if you just don't care and just ignore it, but maybe it'll grow, maybe it won't. But there's nothing in life that's totally passive because it's your money and you really want to keep an eye on it on there. So those 4 franchises are going to be as close to passive as you can get, but you're still, 5, 10 hours a month or something like that. You're still going to be working with them a little bit. We do have franchises, a lot of franchises that are what we call semi-absentee. Those are 10 to 15 hours a week where you manage the manager and you manage the profit and loss statements. Many different industries can do it on there. One thing that you'll have to do as you're going through the process of investigating that is talk to the franchisees who started it out as semi-passive and the ones that are still doing it semi-passive, and find out what semi-passive really means.
Yeah.
And make sure you're okay with that. Because for one franchise, it's going to be different from another franchise as far as just how semi-passive it is. So I don't know that any business that you got into, for the most part, is completely and totally passive because it is your money that you're putting into it. You really want to keep an eye on that. Most people do. So you're still going to be putting in some sort of time into that franchise or
Yep.
whatever business you get into.
Yeah, it makes sense. Greg, what's a mistake that you've made? It doesn't have to be the franchise. It can be early on in your life, whatever. What's a mistake that you've made, and how have you learned from it?
We certainly. So a franchise, we'll stick with the franchise theme. So the first franchise I got into, the Scully Mitchell Telecommunications Consulting franchise. So Dennis School, a great guy. He really set the stage for what franchising was all about. I like the Taco Bell thing, but Dennis, he had beautiful training, absolutely wonderful training. Really got me off to a good start, except for the fact that I had to go out to businesses and I had to sell the service. Okay. So I was a restaurant manager, 15 years, great with people. People come in, I gave them great service, gave them great people, great food. They were happy. Engineer, after that for 15 years. I did a lot of presentations. Pretty simple. Here's the data. What do you think? We're going to go with it? Yes or no? No? Okay. I'll go back and fix it. Yes. Good. We're good to go. So I walk into the businesses and Dennis says, go to the businesses. You're going to analyze your telecommunications bills and then you're going to help them save money. You get half of the savings. Cool. Yeah. So I go in there, present my data after they've given me their telecommunications bills. What do you think? How does it look? No. They tell me no. Okay. Appreciate your time. I'm out of here. Dennis would get so mad. No, Greg, they're always going to say no to begin with. Then you've got to go through this other process to do it. So I made the mistake of thinking that as an engineer, I could do anything. Well, being a great salesperson was not on the top of the list of what great engineers could do. We present the data. You make a decision.
Yep.
You say, yes, we go. You say, no, I walk away. So I had to go back and I had to start learning about how to, I use Zig Ziglar for an example. So sales is something you do with somebody, not to somebody. So I had to kind of figure out is, how do I walk these people through their initial fears of the fact that they had to change their entire system? It's not broke, don't fix it. So I made the mistake of thinking that I could just walk in there, show them the data, and they would just be thrilled to death to just jump all over my services and get me going, and not the case. So I had to learn a little bit more about working with people in the restaurant business and getting them over the certain fears and stuff. So I read a lot of sales books after and learned how to do it in a very positive environment while I was helping people get to where they need to be.
Yeah. Learn how to sell. I think that's, I think that no matter what you're doing, you need to learn how to sell. It's a skill that can be used at, well, quite frankly, any aspect of your life, right? Even if you've got kids, like if you know how to sell and negotiate, I mean, man, you can get a long ways.
That's true. You got to sell them on eating those vegetables.
Exactly.
So that's if you can do that hard sale, you're good out there in the world.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's good. What else do we need to know about about buying a franchise, about that we haven't talked about success with the franchise?
Okay. Two different types of franchises out there, Todd. Everybody knows, what you and I see when we drive around, the brick and mortar franchises on that. Generally speaking, those are $250,000 on up. You build it, they will come. General theme, a lot of great franchises in that area. That's what most people think, especially my real estate investors, because they drive around, that's what they see. Yeah. What we don't see is the services industry franchises. Service industry franchises, your clients don't necessarily know you exist until they need you. Need a great franchise system to drive people to you when that need arises. Those are $150,000, give or take, depending on what kind of equipment you may need on that. Generally, you run it from home or small office, or your manager runs it from their home or small office on that. It doesn't matter too much for the most part, whether it's service industry or brick and mortar franchise. The amount of money you can make varies by each one, but generally, pretty close to the same. So don't think that you have to invest more to make more. You don't necessarily have to do that on that one. Funding is simple. You can use your money, 401k rollover, IRA rollover into that. If you don't mind using your investment money, debt-free, you can do that. I did that with my business. You can go the SBA route. For a service industry, you're probably going to be looking at an express loan, put down about $20,000, get $150,000, $200,000 loan. You go with the brick and mortar, you probably go into a 7A loan, putting about 20% down. As long as you have good credit, funding that franchise is simple on that. My people that do it, they do all the time. The reason it's simple is because that franchise has that proven track record of success. So they just look at your credit. And again, you can do semi-absentee. Some franchises require you full-time. It's almost anything that you're thinking about that you can get into. We can find something for you.
So financing is pretty easy. It sounds like if somebody wanted to
Yes.
get in and they didn't have the cash, financing would be not a big problem.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, Greg, I got a couple last questions before we wrap up. First of all, give our listeners the name of your book, and then I want a favorite book of yours that you can recommend to our listeners other than your book.
Mine is Real Freedom: Why Franchises Are Worth Considering and How They Can Be Used for Building Wealth. If you want to do another business type book, franchise type book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway is one. If you want to learn how to be a salesperson, then again, to go with Zig Ziglar, pick up any of his books. Great individual. I love his attitude about helping others on that. Really helped me out a lot.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great books out there, and just ton of great information. So yeah.
Oh, and Robert Kiyosaki, we already mentioned his book. Everybody has to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. You can't miss that. Yeah, you got to do that one.
Yep, for sure. Greg, last question. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Doing what I want, when I want, and having the money to do it.
Simple, but absolutely, man, what I want. What'd you say? What I want?
What I want, when I want,
and having
the money to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. That's freedom.
That's why we become entrepreneurs. I mean, a lot of people are stuck in the fact that, yes, it can be some work, but the ultimate goal is to be able to have that time freedom to be with your kids, to do what, or whatever it is that you like doing.
Yeah. And it might be still doing business, but it's what you want, when you want, and it's money to do it. So love it. Greg, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Learn more about what you got going on.
You can go to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, M-A-V as in Victor, E-N.com. Email me at greg@franchisemaven.com, or just pick up the phone and give me a call at 361-772-6401.
And you've got a podcast, correct?
I do. Franchise Maven podcast. Yes.
Franchise Maven podcast. So if look, if you're like, hey, this sounds kind of interesting. I want to look at going this route. Probably the easiest thing to do is just go to Franchise Maven podcast, start listening to some episodes, and then get in touch with Greg. So Greg, really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us on the show. A lot of good information. You have a fantastic rest of the day.
You too, Todd. I appreciate you having me, sir. It's been an honor.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.